This is Kat Sturtz from rockingyourpath.com with my next special guest speaker for today's virtual summit, all about how I work from home, how I make working from home work for me. Been talking a lot just yet. And our next speaker is Sheila Finkelstein, who is a lovely essence and a wonderful photographer. And she helps seniors figure out techie things. So I like learning things simply because sometimes that's all you need. You can get overwhelmed with the other stuff. And she's going to be sharing creative tips on shifting perspectives when working from home. So I love that. Sheila, I'm going to give you the spotlight and share with us what some of these creative tips are.
Well, thanks so much for inviting me, Kat, and for that nice introduction. I also work with boomers, people that are like a little bit, that never had the technology when they needed it way back when and are kind of stuck on a lot of the stuff. My biggest passion is photography. Well, not even so much photography, using the camera and discovering things. Well, actually, my biggest passion is curiosity and discovery and finding answers. So if you have a question, even if I don't have the answer, I'll look it up or tell you where you can find the answer. And that's one of the things that really fulfill me. I was an art educator many years ago. I have my master's in creative arts education. When my first teaching job, my first paycheck went to a second camera. My late husband was a great photographer. So speaking of that, I use creative ways to handle things. So when my husband died, the first thing I did was put up a memorial webpage. And a year later, and that helped me handle my grief. And a year later, I put up pictures and remembering his smile. I was in a different place. I could be honoring him more in a different way. And speaking of honoring him, he was the father. Today is my birthing day. 57 years ago, my husband's and my first son was born.
Aww.
So anyway, I'm delighted to be celebrating with you here. Okay, in terms of using the camera and when your work day, I'm very much into looking around, pausing, looking around, seeing anything that catches your eye. I often say, and in a bonus resource I have available for you, I have 7 tips for getting out of a funk. And one of the things is just use your camera, use your eyes and just snap a picture. It's not about taking great pictures. What happens in the process, and I say all you need is 5 pictures, what happens in the process is that you shift your state of mind. It's just automatic. It just happens. And then you're free to get back to work. If and when you have the time, I say, there's an anonymous says, angels whisper when you're walking. Now, I'm very blessed to live well, first of all, I look out on green. My back of my house looks out on green, so that really makes a difference. And I'm blessed to live 20 minutes from the beach and 5 minutes from 2 different wetlands. So when you subscribe to my YouTube channel, you can see a lot of that. I love taking videos, but simply walking out, we're stuck at home sometimes. Even if it's going to the supermarket, I say, give a smile, get a smile. It's a way of opening up interaction. I have and then again, there was one day when I was walking and I don't usually complain. And I was talking to my cousin on the phone, and this was a few years back, and I'm complaining and whining and nothing's happening. And I'm sure many of you have experienced that. And Then I thought to myself, we hung up, and then I said, Sheila, do what you tell other people to do. And this was before I was using the phone camera as much. So that's about all I use now, which makes it that much easier. You've got a camera. It's in the bag on your shoulder. Get it out. Well, sure enough, do what you tell other people to do. Sure enough, 5 pictures later, I was in a different space. Now, so it's shifting perspectives in that way. It's also in interacting with people or even yourself. When you take a picture, you think you're taking a picture of one thing, and then you look at it later and you say, oh, look at that, and I see that. Now, I contend that this kind of thinking and doing also frees you up then when you get back to work. You're starting with a fresh place. You'll see I have a course that I'm giving, and I've given over many years, different times. Somebody was at work and just upset. She opened up her desk drawer, started rearranging the paper clips, and took some pictures, and she felt like a new person. So anything you can do to make that shift, and then that's in the fun. In terms of relationships, I like the light coming in terms of relationships, it's fun to see. If my late husband, I said, was a photographer, he would often say, take that picture. I'd take it, he would take it, but we would both see things, something different in it. Now, if we're talking about it, there's nothing to argue about. It's just a fresh perspective. So it's a way of giving us to realize to be safely communicating without any right or wrong, then opens that up to be in communication perhaps in a different way. Okay. Any questions you want to ask, Kat?
Not yet, but I love both of those things you've already shared. We talked in an earlier session that sometimes we can let busy work get in our way of actually getting our work done. And you've given us a reason for using a focused busy work to help change our perspective sometimes when we need that. The simple task of rearranging the paper clips, as opposed to procrastinating a great big project and going off and cleaning the whole house.
Right.
Right. So,
and the rearranging the paper clips wasn't even about putting them away. You know, if you get stuck, okay, I've got a messy pile here, I have to put it away. On the other hand, I can take a picture of that. I'm not going to show it to you. I can take a picture of that messy pile, and then looking at it, I may see something about lines or text or something, not about putting it away, but what that picture can tell me.
I think I have a word for that.
And again,
I think I have a word for that. It seems to me like it would be purposeful busy work.
Okay.
All right. I know you've got some more tips to share with us.
Okay. So big with me also is, as I say, so much now, everybody's into their smartphones. So if you're hearing something, or very often, or with permission, I'm talking to somebody, I mean, you can record in Zoom, you can record in a lot of different places. But I suggest asking permission. I mean, we're on now. I'd ask permission if you and I are talking. Now, I happen to have a landline phone and a smartphone. Unfortunately, the phone hasn't, at least my iPhone, hasn't figured out a way to multitask. So I couldn't be recording and talking on it at the same time. But the point is, if you're out someplace or you're walking or somebody's saying something and you want to capture it, just ask for permission and flip on the phone and start recording. Everybody's phone has, I mean, in the iPhone is voice memos, and whatever your phone is, there is a recorder on it. And even a lot of people, and maybe you're not yet using it or don't think of it that way, a lot of people simply, if you have an idea or you're in the car or someplace, flip on the phone and record it to get back to. I mean, I use, and I forget, I think it's Ask Google. I discovered by accident one day, you're listening to stuff in the car, an important audio or whatever, a radio program. She's going to go on. And it occurred to me, I wanted to get back to that, and I just asked Siri to make a note to go back to WLRN and check which podcast it was.
Mm-hmm.
And she actually made a note, typed it in, it pulled up, and it came out in notes. And I love making those discoveries and sharing them. I'm also, it's very important to be able to connect with people. Hey, so I just said, well, those that were on came on in lunchtime chat for a bit. I was coming back from an outside networking meeting. So if you can get out, that connection is important at times. I didn't even think I wanted to go. And there was just an aliveness. There was an engaged speaker, a lot of great tips. And it's something then I can take back. And even if you're just coming back to your desk with new energy. So it's connecting, it's doing, oh, by the way, if you're taking those things with the recording, and you want to actually ultimately share it, I have yourontoldstories.com/sharing-your-story. Capturing those moments, you can actually put it together with video, with photos, and create a video, which makes it much easier to share. So, for instance, this is a little bit off the work thing, but it still can be, you can apply it to work. Several years ago, when my it was a lunch break. It was my granddaughter brought her then boyfriend, now husband, to my house for lunch and to introduce him. And they started talking about what they liked about each other. And Brad said, you could put us in an all white room with nothing to talk about and with nothing in it but the two of us, and we'd find something to laugh about. And I said, could I record that? And so I recorded it on Evernote, if you're not using, that's another thing I use, because it takes notes and writes, and so it's available on my phone, on my computer, and on my iPad. Anyway, I recorded it there. And then when I discovered this whole way of using the phone and audio and then photos to create video, with their permission, I now created it as a video. And you can see that on yourontoldstories.com/family videos, no hyphen, like straight word. And what I did was I played it on Evernote, I recorded it on voice memos on my iPhone, and then I added some pictures. And it's there. If they're ever annoyed with each other, they can go back to it. They have kids, they can share it with their kids. And you look like you wanted to say something, Kat.
No, I'm going, that's really brilliant. Yeah.
And another thing with...
Go ahead. Keep going.
On the end, it's in my family videos, YouTube, that leads to a YouTube playlist. And my grandson interviewed me when we were live in person. He wanted to understand his father. Anybody can be interviewing you about work. And you can even interview yourself to remind yourself when you're in a funk. You're excited about something, record it. And you might use it as a testimonial or share it with your people. Then you want your photo there. But heck, or even put your photo, take pictures of you where you're excited. And then when you're in a funk, go back and watch your own video and see what excites you about yourself and about your work. So back to Caitlin. When my husband died, it'll be 2007. It'll be 12 years. We had a memorial service. Caitlin was 15, and she was in a band, and she sang 3 songs explaining why. One of them was Little Mermaid, and the reason she was singing that is because when she was 3, she sang up for Poppy, and he told her she was going to go places. So the next night, we didn't record the memorial service, but the next night, my older son recorded her, and I put it in Audio Acrobat, which I no longer have, and I had it up on my website. But if I wanted to go listen to it, I had to go to my website, the webpage. Well, what I did now was I played the recordings, recorded it on my phone, and then I put it together with some pictures. Now, if I wanted to get really formal about it, I would have gone back and got a picture of her as 3 years old and done a variety of different pictures in that way. My point at this was just to have it to show how it could be done. So you'll see that on the family videos also. Very moving for me. I'm still moved to tears, especially realized her presence. So that's another way. So important to me also, and what I love about technology is the way we can connect with our family and friends. Okay. The Zoom I've been using since 2013.
Mm-hmm.
I read a friend of mine was in the park and she said she was on her iPad watching her son working with a client using Zoom. I couldn't even wait till she was finished. So I went researching to see what she was doing. And it's a great way. Those of you who haven't used it or don't use it fully, that first year we got together with family from all over the world. We don't celebrate Christmas, but on the 25th of December, I think this year maybe 48 years that the family gets together in one home, and we're able for a while to get work with get together for an hour on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
And why stop? Because, and I forget what the different things are. I have a video not up. A friend of mine was saying her parents are in another state, and they did it the first time at Christmas dinner. So they used some Amazon app, and the computer is on their dining room table in Chicago or whatever, and she's here in Florida, and they have Christmas dinner together. Now, my family can use that. We would be using Zoom, and it could be done that way, but it's a way of connecting. Mm-hmm. So at any point, you could be connecting that way. Now, business-wise, when somebody asks me for help, a friend of mine will ask for help or technical stuff, I'll just say, get on Zoom, and I'll show them. It's so much easier, and we can make that connection in that way. So obviously, Zoom is one of my top favorite apps and programs to work, to be connected with ourselves. If you want to remember some of your own work, and again, using the video, you can be recording it, screen share and recording. And speaking of screen sharing, I have stuff. Is that chat for me? You're monitoring. You're rating your thing. Okay.
You're fine. You're doing fine. Great. These are all great tips. Keep going if you've got more.
Okay. So it's interesting. I guess everybody here is probably using Facebook. You probably found this on Facebook or were directed to the link from it. But again, I'm saying if you go to Treasure Your Life now, you'll see .com, you'll see Connect, Communicate, Create. My 3 C's, passionate 3 C's. And I often go, and it's hard. If I haven't heard from somebody for a while, I'll check Facebook before I call them. And I think even with Kat, I think some people are more tuned into Messenger. They'll hear that or see that more quickly. So the bottom line point is get to know your friends, your family, your clients. What's the best way to communicate with them, for them? And then put that in your pocket, in your tool bag if you're not using it, because we're about helping other people or working with the other people. So Zoom, Evernote I mentioned, and the Go. And also I had, when I did a whole list for Kat in terms of technology, sometimes, I don't know, probably none of you ever get up in a bad mood, beating yourself up with all kinds of negatives. I'm sure I'm unique in that. But I found there's several YouTube meditation channels, and replace negative with positive. You can look them all up. If Kat wants, I can add a link to some of the different playlists. And when I finally got a newer TV, it has Roku, which means, and some of you may or may not know, most of you probably have Roku. If you look when you're on video on your phone, and there's a little in the upper right, a little like almost looks like the attached to the network, but that allows you can actually connect to YouTube from your phone, from whatever you are, and then play those. So I have those videos going in another room, just with the music very softly playing. Most of it's not, the images aren't aren't in it anyway. There's some just are static, but that's there. So that's a way for relaxation and also shifting. And they're 3 hours long, and somehow my mood shifts. I don't know how or why, and I just trust. That's one of the things I do. Writing is very important to me. Also, and I'm going to start screen sharing something.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I can talk while I'm looking this up. Another way in getting out of and helping you get direction, so to speak, when you're stuck with something, I very strongly recommend, or you keep hearing the same thing going around, it's never going to happen, good things or bad things, just setting a timer and starting to write. Just set a timer for 4 or 5 minutes. I'll never get this done. And just start writing. I'll never get this done. Whatever it is. And free flow writing and see what comes up for you. And very often, there'll be a breakthrough. I have a problem. And I'll work it with the timer. It's more than just writing it out. I set the timer up. I still have more to write. I'll reset the timer again. I also do morning pages by Julia Cameron, which means 3 pages every morning. Now, she has a newer book out that actually is a book just about morning pages. I picked it up on, an Artist's Way, and it's 3 pages of free flow writing. Like it used to be for me, and it still is, like brain dump. Mm-hmm. But she has a whole section in her book now on the writing morning pages on doing what does it mean? I forget the 4 questions now. I can look that up and send them. But what do I need to know? And she discovered each of the things in those 4 questions. Those can be written otherwise, but that's how she does her morning pages now. Okay. Another thing on getting control of oneself, so to speak, or even if you're bored, is I've done, and I have another book on haiku for healing or something, and this was really interesting. Now, haiku is 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables. So if you start hearing yourself say something, I'll suddenly say, here I am saying, what am I saying? 5 syllables. I really don't know, but cat, something, 7 syllables, and it keeps going. But what I wanted to share with you now is really interesting. I just want to go to current. Well, my desk is clean anyway, so you can see it.
I love the haiku. I never considered counting them off on your fingers like that. That's really cool.
Yeah, thanks, because that gives you some control too, and it's moving away. It's just moving away, and it's a tactile on the thing. So here, this was interesting. I was speaking on a radio show, and we were going to speak on, this was somebody that was working with caregivers, on using haiku for stress reduction. Mm-hmm. And he decided to try it on his son. His son couldn't think, you'll just see, this is on Writing for Healing. I'll put the link in the chat. Okay, so he had his son write, he told his son about it, and he said, he got the idea when he was getting ready. He said, as he was tucking Brady into bed, Brady said, Dad, the bed's so cold I can't fall asleep. So Bert said, continuing, he was thinking about what he had read, and he got the idea to get Brady to refocus. And I told him, let's write a haiku about how your bed's cold. Within 5 minutes, Brady declared, and count on your fingers, cold bed freezes toes, heart racing, warming my nose, tucked in tight, good night.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So he took a situation that he was not good, that he was not happy about, in his little 8-year-old body and brain, and used what he was able to all of a sudden transform it into a piece of art and use that artful expression to help him down. help him calm himself down. So I'm writing for healing. Oh yeah, I said I was going to put that in the chat. Well, it's on the chat.
Yeah, it's a
Okay,
little
there we
harder
go.
to get to chat when
That's
you're
in
in
the
screen.
chat.
There you go. Okay, great. Thank you for that. I love every example you've given us is with tools we already have. And sometimes we don't even need a tool, but it's a different way of using what we've already got. I never thought about counting out the haiku on my fingers. I like reading poetry, but I'm the writer who doesn't do poetry. I mean, I've done a couple poems and they've all been dares, and I just did it to fulfill the dare. But to count them off as you're thinking, that really just takes the focus out of the worry or whatever's going on in your brain and kind of transfers it into, like you said, a different perspective. And what comes back to you is that new perspective. I think that's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you for sharing that resource too. Yep. And
My
everybody,
pleasure.
yep. We have people have been giving us their emails to me by private chat. So everybody will be getting follow-up for the replays, and they'll get all of the speaker links to the speaker contact information and the speaker resources. So we'll make sure and add this one to that list as well. And I also put in,
Okay, I will.
go ahead.
I also have a haiku for healing.
Yeah.
And PDF, and I'll give you that link then, Kat, since you're doing the thing. I mean, I also use that to control anger. When my late husband had Parkinson's disease and I was angry at what he was doing to us. And I mean, there's some little things, and it's just the free flow of it. I just kissed the bitch, reminds me of something. But then I remember I was sitting at Little League, and I think that's in my haiku thing, or it might even be on this thing. But the sitting at a ball game, I was bored. Little League game. So I just started writing them. And Kat, I suggest strongly that you eliminate that you can or can't write poetry, and just if you start with the free flow words. So I want to share another thing. May I?
I don't want to write poetry, but yeah, that's a good suggestion. Absolutely.
Well, it might turn out as poetic. So I happen to have been in a writing class, and have writing groups, and we do a lot of free flow writing.
Mm-hmm.
And one morning, now what I'm showing you now is this is a resource that Kat will be giving the link to. I'll be getting that page up later today. But reflections, photos, and queries using photography for breakthrough shifts in seeing, communicating, and being. So an example, I talk about it, and the tips for getting out of the funk are there. And I start with this. We were in a writing class. I was in a writing class, and I had written a poem from my heart to yours, responding to a prompt. And again, Kat and everybody, remember, it's simply responding to a prompt, and just write with the timeline. So you never know what comes up. And oftentimes what comes up for me winds up being somewhat poetic. And I started writing about the heart, and I started writing, I had Ode to Wakota. It's one of the places I walk, and the scene, there's a page. You can see this in the book, but green, and it was the whole thing. And it was almost like from my heart to yours, or ultimately. And I took that, and one of the things, and you can do this too, when you go for a walk, have an intention. So just an intention, even to solve a problem, or what am I going to do with whatever's going on in your mind, just have an intention in that walk that the answer is going to come up for you. So I had an intention that I wanted to find an illustration for that poem as I was walking, and look what I found.
That's gorgeous.
So it was all out of intention, and it showed up. Mm-hmm. So they're now set intentions. Now let me quickly go through this, and this is talking about, I did Picture to Ponder, and I'm still doing it for like 14 years or something, and taking pictures And I call them, usually a picture would, sometimes it was a story around why I used the picture, but would bring up what I call self-reflecting queries. Now you can do this for yourself on your own with your own picture, looking at that, what does that bring up? And start writing about it, or just think about it, or talk about it, or talk with someone, or you're having a communication challenge. Talk with the person and say, what do you see? And, again, it's a safe way. So in here, I have these photos and I have queries that came up. So I just wanted to show you, give you a taste of that. And this was on a cruise, taking pictures. And one of the reasons I included it also was that sometimes there are pictures there you wouldn't think of taking. And if you start thinking of eye catchers, this caught my eye. And then this was a whole different perspective. And I write about that.
Mm-hmm.
Walking here. Go ahead.
Let me stop you just a second. Let me share something that one of our attendees has mentioned. She said her best ever poem was written for a class on the Holocaust. The assignment was actually supposed to be for another English class. She had it with the same teacher. I love that she was able to multi-purpose something that way, which is another way of another perspective, seeing how you can use something over there, which is a lot of what you've been sharing, how one thing has prompted you to do something else, how looking at something has prompted writing about something, how thinking about something has prompted coming up with a haiku and finding the relationship between them, but also helping change our perspective about things. And I think that's really good. That's really good. So I'm sorry, I had interrupted you. What else were you going to say there?
No, that's okay. I just was going to, maybe that person would allow you to share that poem when you send this out.
Possibly. She knows who she is, so she's got my email. So if she wants to do that, she can do that. It was sent as a private message. That's why I'm not saying your name.
Right. Okay. Now that's fine. And I would appreciate if you don't want to have Kat share it with everyone. If you would give Kat, if you would share it, or Kat, would share it with me privately. I mean, not here right now, but you'll have my email, and I love to see what people are doing. And I never share anything like the video that's up with Brad and Caitlin. They have their permission. Everything on that channel, the family videos, is done with my kids with their permission. Always, even when you're recording, this permission. And by the way, when I say in Your Untold Stories, you hear somebody say something, very often people don't want to be videoed, or it's not the time, but they don't even know after a while if you just have the phone in your hand or on the table or something like that. And then if you want to share it later, get back and ask for permission again.
Well, you're going to like this, because she said that she has no problem sharing it with you. She just has to find it first.
Okay. Actually, networking meeting, I'd even forgotten what it was. Somebody said, I haven't forgotten you, but my son doesn't remember where he put those things in. That was, he had interviewed his grandmother and all the questions he had. And this was months ago. I had forgotten about it already. So I can understand that. Set an intention, though.
Well,
and then forget about it.
I love that you brought us a different perspective even to our virtual summit today. This is a topic of the changing perspective that we haven't covered yet. And even Donna, who will be following you, is dealing with perspective, but in a completely different way. And so this is great. It is so important for us, especially for those of us who work from home, to do something you mentioned right off the bat, and that's find a way to get out of our environment once in a while, either physically, which is great, but also mentally, and also just with other connections that we can use technology for, calling, using Zoom or Facebook Messenger, or somebody mentioned here Google Chat, and different ways. one's got a daughter in Ireland. And I think it's just amazing that we are able to do that now. I mean, I'm here in rural Michigan. I was born and raised in Detroit. Fine. But here in rural Michigan, I can still connect with people around the world, using simple technology, inexpensive technologies, and often free technology, and things that we have already bought. So if you've got the cell phone already, using it to do these other things is not an additional cost. You're already paying for the phone, right?
Mm.
Yep. And I want to
And most of those apps, including video editor apps, are free.
Yes. Yep. And I have used my phone to both take pictures and also to record a testimonial at the time, especially if I was helping my chef husband and we were at like a food vendor booth or at a cooking, private catering for somebody. And it was quick and easy to do. And then you've got that recording, and I have them state the date and their name and that they're giving permission right in there, that's good. Let me ask you just a couple questions about the home environment there. Okay. Oops, we lost your pretty picture, but got the static one. There we go.
No, I know. I was getting annoyed. I didn't like the way the light was hitting my hair, so you didn't need to see my elbow or whatever when I leaned over to fix the blinds.
That's fine. That's fine. What's been the hardest thing from working from home in a home where you're the only person living there?
Not having somebody to talk to. And I get on the phone and whatever, but I was very blessed. I was married for 47 years and my husband was my biggest supporter. Mm. And he'd be looking at things. Now, he was a quiet man, and we didn't dialogue that much about things, but he would just look and just work, and it was just something to say. And to tell you a quick story of quiet men, several years ago, I was into feng shui or listening to tapes and everything else, and we think, and so I'm pointing this out, we think people may not be listening. You have a partner or kids, but check with them first before you make up that they weren't listening or something else. So that's the point. We tend to live in our stories of what we make something mean, and we never check it out. So anyway, we're driving one day, and I guess I didn't even think, I didn't have a feng shui tape on. It might have been a while since I had. And we passed, there was a restaurant in our area just like between two crossroads at a triangle. And I just happened to comment, I said, Claire and Colby's always has a lineup. And my husband said, they must have good feng shui. So it's like, huh? Obviously, I've been listening. We never talked about it.
That's
okay. Did I interrupt the question, Pat?
And am I right in assuming that your ability to continue and build your home-based business helped you deal with the loss of your husband? That having that purpose of your photography and helping with people and, helping people the way you do.
Yeah, well, it does fill my life. I also have somewhat of a guilt at times because I used to leave him sitting in the kitchen, and I'd be in here working in the dining room. So, but doing in the guilt doesn't serve any of us. And again, it's always check it out. So I'd feel guilty, and I'd be talking, and might have been bitchy and cursing and all that, and not nice to him sometimes. And then I'd go in and sort of tuck him into bed, and I'd say, I love you. And he always said, I love you back. And I'm thinking, how could he love me? I was such a bitch. But I have a haiku to that effect. But anyway, so I was really, really very blessed. But if you're with a partner or people, I say, who you feel don't understand you or something, talk. Stop and talk. also, if you ever get into an argument, I remember there's a book, Dance of Anger, and it's like a vicious circle. And I learned years back after Landmark Forum that one day I met my husband. I was assisting, etc., met him, and whatever happened, he started getting into, we're fine and getting into a thing, and he said to me, well, you're asking me to do the forum. I said, what happened? And so I said to him, I was able to stop. Usually, instead of continuing the cycle of, well, no, this time it's different and blah, 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 I said to him, I said, if I agree, I said, first of all, you were talking about your day in the law, and I was talking about my day. If I agree not to ask you to do the forum, can you view it that way, that type of conversation? And he said, yes. Now, ever after that, and I suggest if you ever get into conflict argument with anyone, first of all, it's not the best time to communicate necessarily, but stop and say, what's really going on here? And ever after that, I did with my husband. Fortunately, we didn't argue that much, but if they feel the heat, it was stop. What's really going on here? And most of the time, it was about each of us wanting to be right. So then we could stop and identify what we really wanted to talk about and make an agreement to continue on that path or come back to it when the emotions had died down.
Yeah.
But again, it's whenever you have a whole story and aren't even aware about it, always stop and check it out. What's going on with the person you're communicating or attempting to communicate with?
That's very wise advice. I also tell people, especially women, and men actually as well, but it seems I deal with this more with the women than the men. A lot of us have been brought up that when we have a problem and we express that, the person we're expressing it to wants to jump in and solve it for us. Where a lot of times as women, we just want to express that we have this problem. We don't want somebody jumping in and solving it for us, and that can start some sparks and arguments. So start your sharing of that by saying, I really need to get something off my chest, or I need to hear myself talk about this to understand how I'm really feeling about this. I don't need you to solve this for me. So, all I need is you to listen, just listen. And if you can start that way, that takes the burden off of them from thinking, oh my God, they want me to solve this for them. And it also protects you from having to feel that, oh my God, they just took over my project that I wanted to complete and just needed to air my thoughts on it to get me to the next step. So I think that correlates with what you were suggesting as well. Yes.
Absolutely, Kat. That's great. And I mean, one of the things, in a different kind of an example, but the same thing, is if I'm upset about something, I don't cry much. But if I wanted to talk to my husband about something and I knew there was something sensitive, not even about what he did or whatever, and I know he'd get upset with my tears. So I would start out saying, I may cry, but please disregard that and listen to what I have to say. So I eliminated the upset. And years back when I was in outside sales, I had two different prospects saying to me, why are you angry? And I said, I'm not angry. What is it? And I went to an NLP workshop, neuro-linguistic programming, happened to be the end of that week. And I spoke to the speaker, and she said, what happens is when we talk, depending on visual, auditory, or whatever, my eyes go up to the right and my face screws up. And the person doesn't know what to make of it, so interprets it as anger. So there would be times when I would be out in a sales presentation after that, and I said, look, my eyes might go up, I may look away, my face might screw up, but it's not about you, I'm just thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we expect people to read our minds, especially people close to us, and they can take their best shot, but it may not be accurate. So give them some help and lay the
Right.
groundwork for that conversation the way you'd like it to go ahead of time, and reciprocate too. If you find that a certain conversations always trigger an argument, suggest they lay their groundwork down first. Works with kids too.
Right.
So that's great. Well, Sheila, you have shared some wonderful things with us, some things I had never considered before, which just lights me up because I always like learning new things. We appreciate the people that we've had stay with us right here in the group all the way through that are anxious to get their hands on your free resources as well. And I will be sending those out later on, probably next week. This is Saturday, so look for it probably Monday or Tuesday, Wednesday at the latest, especially if I'm flying from Michigan to, or leaving from Michigan to South Carolina that day, which is, talk about being flexible. That whole trip came up as a possibility late last night. So it's like, it wasn't even on my radar.
What's in South Carolina, or who's in South Carolina?
I have some family down there. My brother's been down there for about 35 years, and one of my sisters
Wow.
moved down a couple years ago, and my brother's daughter, his only daughter, he's got two kids, a boy and a girl, and she had passed away from an unanticipated drug-related death. You guys have heard about the dangers of fentanyl, and she had gotten some accidentally when she was thinking she was getting something else. So, and I haven't been down there since then. So another sister is flying down with my nephew, and I told him I just couldn't get away. I told him that a couple of months ago, and my brother called and said, I really want you to come down. So we're trying to make that happen. Oh, Tina. Okay. So, would you like to share that? She knows who I'm speaking about. The person who was looking for the poem found the poem. So, or are you just letting us know that you found the poem, and you're going to share that with either Sheila or me, and I'll forward that to Sheila. That's awesome. I'm not sure I could have found
Well,
mine.
if she's willing, it'd be great to read it.
Yeah.
I mean, to hear it if she's willing.
Okay, well, we'll give her a second I know it's hard for her to type where she's at right now, so we'll give her a second to answer us right there. And either way is fine with us. So, don't feel compelled to air it publicly if that's not your choice or not your preference. All right. While we're waiting for her to answer us, Sheila, any last words of wisdom you'd like to share with us?
What just came up for me now is in terms of another way of getting excited about what you do is sharing it. You may think you're in a funk, but I mean, I'm just being in this experience. And I mean, I could have just been interacting with Kat on Facebook Messenger or something, and you hear something, or people are more than likely acknowledging, and it gives you new energy.
Mm-hmm.
And always feel free to ask somebody if you're feeling down, or ask some people, what is it you think I do best, or what do you most like about? Start out. Okay, let me start out. One of the things I most appreciate, I appreciate about you is, okay, so Kat, one of the things I most appreciate about you is your technical knowledge and all that you're willing to share.
I appreciate that.
What is it that you most appreciate about me?
I appreciate your perspective and your willingness to open yourself up in your art and share that, because that's not something that I'm particularly skilled at. So I appreciate how you make art doable without the overwhelm of thinking I got to get this perfect. You've taught me how to look at potential photographs from different perspectives. So I think I've become a better photographer, even though, I use some photography in my Facebook messages, my posts, and on my website. because then I don't have to worry about copyright issues. I took them, and they're me, and I have the copyright for them. If somebody else is in it, like you said, get the permission for that. All right, we've got the person is.
And thank you for that. And so that was an example of how you can build yourself up gratitude. I mean, I'm sure most of you read, all of you, the importance of gratitude. And so getting yourself in a space of gratitude, or even like writing 5 gratitudes a day, can put you in a different space. And then, pick some people, acknowledge your family members or whoever's around you, even in a store or the supermarket.
All right. Well, we've got permission from Tina to read her poem. So would you like to read that, Sheila, or would you like me to read that?
You can read that. Thanks.
All right. So here's the poem that Tina's sharing with us. Don't look too terrible to behold. The world shook when the truth was told. Too terrible to behold. Who's to blame? When the truth was told, we were all the same. Who's to blame? Was it just one man? Are we all the same? What flames did he fan? Was it just one man that the world shook? What flames did he fan? Don't look. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
that was a completely cold
Tina.
reading from me, people.
Yeah.
Why don't you speak about that as part of our closing here? Thank you so much again, Tina, for sharing that.
Yeah, thanks, Tina. Very powerful.
And we know the background because she shared that earlier. This was about the Holocaust. That was the original assignment. So yeah, wonderful ending to this session about creative tips on
Did you give Tina the
Go ahead.
I assume you unmuted Tina. Because she can't unmute herself, correct?
I can try here.
Okay, now she can share if she wants.
Yep, Tina, would you like to jump? Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so the poem is a type, it's a style, like haiku has certain syllables. The way this poetry is set up, your first and third of one set, or the second and fourth, it repeats. If you look at the stanzas, your second one of the first stanza becomes the first one of the second stanza. So you have a set that you have to follow for those lines.
So can you read it better than I did?
I don't know if I can, but I'll try. Don't look, too terrible to behold. The world shook when the truth was told. Too terrible to behold, who's to blame? When the truth was told, are we all the same? Who's to blame? Was it just one man? Are we all the same? When the flames did he fan? Was it just one man the world shook? What flames did he fan? Don't look. And it was one of the things that inspired this is right after the French went into Auschwitz, they took film of what they found. And the class was horrible because it was so depressing anyway, but we watched part of that film, and while you're watching it, it's really hard to watch. It's really, and that was the don't look part. But it was also one of the things that the whole world kind of had to deal with at the time period is we had a visual of what happened, and what do we do with that? Do we just say, oh, that's something Hitler did, that's something they did, or is there blame on the other side as well because we didn't do anything? Mm-hmm. It was kind of the way we were discussing it in class. But it was, the funny thing was I actually didn't get credit for it, because when I said it was for a different class, it was, the assignment was supposed to be in a different class, So this actually didn't count for the class I wrote it for.
And what's
I
the
mixed up the two assignments.
what's the
But-
form of poetry?
I'm
All right, we'll look it up. I'll look it up.
I'll look it up. But I find this type of poetry easy to write for. Other people do not. I like it.
Okay,
But
thank you.
Anyway.
Well, we thank you for sharing. All right, I'm going to have to close this particular episode. I'm going to take the spotlight back again here.
Thank you. I appreciate Kat.
Oh, it was a wonderful presentation, Sheila. I'm so glad that we're going to have the replay for those who weren't here live. I'm so glad that those who stayed around, most of the people have been here since the beginning or have bounced in and out. That was great. Thank you again, Tina, for sharing your poem and allowing us to share that publicly here, and for your feedback. We are coming up to our final session for today. That's with Donna Blevins, Dr. Donna Blevins. She's in the house. And Sheila, you feel free to stick around if you'd like, and we understand if you've got to take off. Just a reminder for those who are live, if you've given me your email privately in chat, you are on the email list now to get the notices for the replay, for all of the speakers, free resources, and the newsletter, and for the various notes of things we talked about during our lunch break, because that was quite lively too. All right, so I'm going to turn this recording off.
And thanks from me also. I thank you, Kat, but thank everybody else who was here and who's watching on the replay. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Sheila. And this is Kat Sturtz from rockingyourpath.com. I'll be right back with one more speaker for today's summit.